children a voice. We thought children didn't have where to voice their issues from and how best they would voice them, because many times we still write the adult stories in the newspaper. By then, we had Children's Vision, which was just 4 pages. Then we moved to Children's World, which was also coming out on Sunday. Then along the way, we realized that actually children had more issues, and we thought by demarcating them out of the newspaper and having their own magazine, which they were writing for themselves and it was their voice, we thought that was a good idea as a service to our readers, because as Vision Group, it is to enhance the reading culture in society, starting at a tender age. And you know, a good leader of tomorrow has to be a reader today. So from that point of view, we thought if we needed to have better leaders of tomorrow, we needed to have children who can read, children who appreciate reading. Because when they look at the newspaper, for them they think it's an adult piece of writing. But when they hold their children magazines, leave alone being just Toto, but also Rainbow, there's a way they feel. There's a way they feel that this is our own. And you must have noticed that all parents, I guess, when it comes to Tuesday or Wednesday, a child will ask you for Rainbow or Toto. Why? They do not care about the newspaper. They just want that voice for themselves. Meanwhile, everybody thinks that we are not yet doing a good job as media for the children. But these kids at least think we have a starting point where they are today. However, there are so many challenges that come with reporting for children. Children are the hardest people to please. Children are very, very sensitive. You may think you can run any issue in total. No. You run it and children are like, oh my God, how could Aunt Jovita do that? Does she know what she has done to this child? And you know, mommy, this child goes to our school. So sometimes it's hard. How do you differentiate which content should I publish and which one shouldn't I? And it's both negative and positive. It's children's content. They need to know. When it comes to, like, I'm just giving an example of sexual harassment. You talk to these kids, they want to tell you how they've been sexually harassed by their teachers, by their brothers, by their relatives at home, but they do not want their faces out. And these are children. So how do you run such a story? Yet you want other children who haven't yet gone through it to learn from it. The children also get stigmatized. Their parents are the first people to be stigmatized. They're like, how dare you do that? Secondly, the other challenge is getting permission from the parents. For the good reasons, you can publish anything. For the bad reasons, you have to go deep into finding who their guardians, their parents are. And these children think you know each one of them by name. When you go to a school, children write back and complain, Auntie Jovita, I waved at you and you didn't wave back. But I cannot know. So you smile, like a sheep everywhere. You have to be a very good auntie, a good mom. And these kids want you to be part of their lives. But sometimes it's so hard. Children also want to see themselves as compared to what other children may be doing in other sectors, maybe in other villages, or in other schools, or in other districts. But sometimes they do not want you to portray the bad. Having that magazine look the way it looks every week. You know, children want to see something different every other week. They hate monotony. Finding something to fit in every other week and it looks different is a very big challenge. By the time we started Toto magazine, there were few children's magazines around. So finding who to compare with, what can I run, what do you think would be of interest to children, how can I do this? Even when we called children for a brainstorm meeting, they didn't know exactly what they wanted. But I've noticed that when you think along with the kids, and you think you're shaping them for the future, they were learning. But if you start running things because you want to sell, then I get challenges there.
Rainbow has been published in the Daily Monitor for a long time. I can't remember exactly how many years, but up until March 19, it used to be 4 pages. Then we decided, the editors, we decided that there was need for more pages because the content that we were publishing was not enough for the children. If you've noticed, even if children love to watch TV and play games and all, they love reading a lot. It's educative but informative in a fun way. So one of the reasons as to why the news publication like Daily Monitor needed a children's magazine is because we want to be part of the grooming, because the media these days ends up grooming most of their children. So just want to be part of the grooming of the grooming of their children. Educate them on when you different things, etiquette, and also inform them, because the children listen to the news, they watch the news, they read the news, but the way the news is in the newspapers is not children friendly, not exactly because of content, but because of the way it's written. So where Rainbow comes in is to break it down for the child, yeah? And then some things run in the newspaper, in the main book, and it's scary for the children. There's a story that Daily Monitor had about a child, I've put in her name, but the child was raped. The mother had stayed out in a building late in the night. So when we saw that, we thought, wow, like if a child reads this, they're going to be very, very scared. So we ran a story explaining, this happened, this is how you can avoid it, this is what it means, do not stay out late in the night and different things like that. Even the Westgate scenario, because it's something that can happen in Uganda, so we had to explain. So the reason is to be able to explain to them the news, but in a child-friendly way, and then to show them the consequences, the impacts, and all of that, and then give the children a voice. Yeah, that's why we have sections like What You Say, where we go out to the schools, talk to children, ask them if for example, you can ask them. What do they think makes a good teacher? And they are very interesting answers, by the way. So they tell you a teacher should do this, a teacher should do this, and different other things. Some of them are things that are happening in the country, like they've been probably airing on TV and stuff like that. So that's the reason as why we have the children's magazine. Of course, it's very, very tricky. Like Jovita said, it's very tricky dealing with children. They are very, very sensitive. Then they can easily be put off. They're like just going to do something very small and it's gone. They're not going to look at this at whatever it is that you're publishing anymore. First of all, when you're writing for children, you have to be very, very simple. Because you see, a magazine like Rainbow, for example, it's not only for the 12-year-old, the 11-year-old that is in P7. It's for the children that are also in primary 3. Now, the diction that a child in primary 3 uses is different from what a child in P7 uses. So you have to have a balance. You have to try to do what the child wants, but then as an editor and as an adult, you try to do what you think is right for that child, because at the end of the day, you're helping groom that child. So that is all. That's how we get the Rainbow magazine to come out looking that way.
Straight Talk products are highly audience driven. Nothing gets into a Straight Talk paper and it has not come out of young people. So for everything that you see in Straight Talk, young people have a stake in it. They have written to us, they have spoken to our teams and told us what they want to know. One of the things about Straight Talk is that our messages are age appropriate. That's why you find Young Talk and Straight Talk, and we also have Straight Talk in local languages. But also we realize that children are not islands, they live with other people in their communities, like the teachers, the parents. So we also have products that address different sections to be able to give children a supportive environment, to be able to communicate better with children. That's why we have teacher talk, we have parent talk, and all the rest that follow. The challenge, however, is how to keep it fresh every time. And like Jovita and the lady from Monitor talked about, keeping it fresh. Young people don't want the same. So you always have to be on your toes to make sure that it's kept fresh. You're talking about the same topics, but you have to find a different angle all the time to this topic. So That is where the biggest challenge for us at Straight Talk is keeping it fresh. Like the topics will not change soon, they never change. Even if we did an age-appropriate paper, we also realized that actually, even within that age, there are people with different interests. So we have what we call the Katobo approach. We know that our audience, probably there's someone who is out there who is behaving good, but there's also somebody who is trying to get out of a bad relationship. Probably they have a boyfriend that is taking advantage of them. So every young person must draw something out of a Straight Talk paper. Whether it's a young positive, you have to deal with the young positives. You have to deal with those who are abstaining. You have to deal with those who are about to start having sex. You have to deal with different kinds of young people and what they want. So we have this in-house style that we call the Katobo approach, where we give everybody something. So if I don't want to read about, say, young positives, at least I need to learn a life skill. Probably I need to learn to say no to someone who wants to take advantage of me. So that's how we package the Straight Talk paper. Right from our office, the people that we employ are young people because we want to, to use their expertise. They are very brilliant people to be able to put together our products. We want to use their language, but also when we go out to the field, we have what we call the journalist for a day approach, where young people write for fellow young people. We give them basic journalistic skills and then they go out and bring the stories. They may not be the best of the best, and that's where we come in to try and put together and edit them. But the stories, the language used will be their own language. We usually do what we call a pretest for all our publications. And we go back to a community. One has to be urban, one has to be rural. So when we go to these communities, we just want to make sure that they understand what we are talking about and they can actually identify with this paper. Because we don't want to be writing from our perspective. We want this paper to be theirs. So we go and do pretests. And pretests really open the eyes for somebody. You can be writing and you're putting all your jargon, you're using all sorts of words. But when you go for the pretest, the children will tell you the simplest of ways to put that, whatever term you want, if it actually passed to that level. So pretests are very, very good, and I think it's been one of the things that has helped us to really deal with the issue of the language. But also because we do it in the rural and urban settings, we kind of get to know what the young person in the rural setting feels about this story and what the urban person feels about this story. Since 2009, we've been doing a publication for Braille. It's Straight Talk Braille and Young Talk Braille. And we don't just translate the Straight Talk paper into Braille. We go to these young people and they tell us about the challenges of growing up when you're a blind person, and the whole sexuality issue about and sexuality in the eyes of a blind child. And it's one of the papers that has really, really been well appreciated in this country because they don't have anything. Nobody seems to care about them. It's the only thing they look forward to. The only challenge is that it comes out once in probably 4 months. And that is a long time because Braille is a very expensive product to do.
The distribution and accessibility. Apart from Straight Talk, you will find that the Toto magazine and the Rainbow, it can only be accessed by those little ones whose parents cannot have the money to buy the publications. So my question is, how about the other person that you're covering? The coverage is good and the segmentation of the audience is within the children. But the problem is coming with accessibility and distribution.
We are really doing that, or we are trying to do that. And to our advantage, we've gotten sponsors who have come on board and they buy the Wednesday newspaper, particularly for those regions. Karamoja region, we have in Arua, we have in Uru, we have in in Kasese, and the newspaper, they are paid for, it's prepaid for.
We have another product, it's called NIE, Newspaper and Education. It comes out on Monday. Now, NIE it targets the rural child. So for them, when they are doing whereas Rainbow is mainly for the urban child that is all over the country, really. Yeah? So NIE is mainly for the rural children. So those have sponsors that pay for the newspaper to be delivered to the children. And sometimes when you look at it, you find that the issues are the same. Maybe it's just the design and the presentation that is different.
You did hint about the Straight Talk clubs, which at one point I witnessed, and I was one of those active members when I was still at high school. But what I witnessed is, it is normally children in upper primary that take an upper hand in being active members of this club. So they tend to overshadow these ones who are in the lower classes. So my question is, what initiative have you taken as a means of evaluating the effectiveness of these clubs so that the entire student or people's body in a particular school benefits from the package that you have?
We do evaluations based on probably the funds we have. It can be after 3 months, after 4 months. And what we do a lot of operational research, which helps us to know what is out there, what the children expect, what they want to see, how they want the paper to be. So that operational research really helps to guide us, because it's really our eyes and ears. So we always go back to our M&E department and say, oh, so you went to Koboko, what are the children in Koboko saying? What do they want to see? Then they'll say the paper doesn't reach them because it stays at the DEO's office. So that's why we keep trying to see what works best for us.